In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. Tonight, we have another really great show. We've got Mr. Ramon D. Durham as our guest tonight. Ramon D. Durham is a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a proud graduate of Howard University. He is a passionate advocate for reentry and social justice. He currently serves as a reentry instructor and case manager with the nonprofit organization in Boston, Massachusetts area, where he supports formerly incarcerated individuals in rebuilding their lives with dignity and purpose. In the fall, he will begin a dual Master of Divinity Master of Social Work program at Boston University, a path that reflects his deep commitment to healing, restoration, and community transformation. With lived experience and a heart for justice, Ramon brings compassion, insight, and integrity to his work. He believes in the power of second chances and is dedicated to creating systems of support that honor the humanity and potential of every person. His work is rooted in the hope that true freedom comes not just through release from incarceration, but through access to opportunity, healing, and a supportive community. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring to the show Mr. Ramon Durham.
Hey,
Hello, sir.
Charles. Hello, Charles. How you doing?
I'm doing just excellent. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yes, sir. I am really glad that you're here and we finally were able to get this to work.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm excited. This is my first time ever doing a podcast, so.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Once you get done with doing this one right here, we'll have you back again because you'll love it that much.
Okay.
So, is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
No, I think that kind of like adequately describes like who I am, and like kind of like what I do. I just like to always share and be transparent about like where I've been. So a lot of the work I do is based upon my lived experience. I think also my reasoning, my why for the work that I do is because I've dealt with addiction. I've dealt with incarceration. And I know how difficult it is trying to navigate transformation. Also, even in getting out of prison, like I didn't kind of like get into trouble until after I kind of like graduated from Howard. So, but even with having a degree, the opportunities as far as employment were limited to me. So I just know the struggle. And so that's why I'm passionate about like the work that I do, helping formerly incarcerated people.
Well, one last thing. Did I pronounce your name right?
Ramon, yep.
It is Ramon. Okay. Yep. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So let's get started here. Let's go into, the personal background and career. Can you share your background and what inspired you to become a public speaker?
So basically I would say that like I felt a calling, I would say, into what I would say like ministry. At like 18, I was a freshman at Howard University, and I remember at this time I was when I first went to school, I was drinking, partying, and my birthday's in September, so a month after being in school my freshman year, I kind of had like what I say like a spiritual awakening as I was sitting in a bar, and I just felt like an emptiness, like kind of like a void that I never experienced before, and it caused me to like kind of like dig deeper into a relationship with God. So during that time, I felt like I had I felt a call into ministry. Ministry for me, I thought, of course, having a limited understanding, I thought that it meant church, pastoring, and preaching, and I've even done that. But I feel like that, like kind of like the ministry that I feel kind of like called to is like outside the four walls of a church, and it's more towards like public service, public speaking. So the public speaking part is I would say kind of like um, attached to what I first felt
Mm,
as being called into ministry or to preaching.
mm. So, can you tell us how does that correlate or connect with, the things that you went through after school to this point? How does that correlate?
So like basically, I would say that like I because I again like I because I've struggled with addiction, and because I've been incarcerated. I've had an involvement in the criminal justice system. I think that life has a way of like leading you in certain directions. Throughout my lived experiences, I feel like that it gave me like kind of like compassion, empathy, like different things that I probably didn't have prior to all of my
Mm,
experiences. And so because of my experiences with addiction, because of my experiences with incarceration, I became passionate about helping men, and particularly heal, find hope, and to find freedom.
mm. So, when you say you found hope in helping a lot of these men heal, I mean, like, was your healing process a long process? Was there someone to help you through that process, or how does that work?
My I would say honestly, to be perfectly honest, I'm still healing. I feel like healing is an ongoing thing. It's a journey, and it's definitely not been like I just I went into jail, like I had this awakening, and I got out and did everything right. It's been a series of extreme highs and extreme lows, a series of successes and failings and mistakes, a series of lessons, tough lessons at times. I'm learning, and I would say that like I'm still healing, and so like as I'm healing, as like I believe that like I gain wisdom from God and wisdom from my lived experiences, I pass on that wisdom to others who may be in similar situations than me.
Mm. So, what motivated you to focus on community outreach and social justice, particularly around the prison reentry
I'm
programs?
just again, I would say that it's been my experiences, like because of my like prior to me going through everything that I went through, I never saw me really doing this work. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I said, at first I felt a call in the ministry. My bachelor's degree is actually in music. I have a bachelor's degree in music, but I was just a little bit lost with identity and not understanding like who I was or like how I wanted to show up in the world. And so, because of my experiences, it created in me, I believe, like a desire. I even not even like created a desire. I feel like that it like my experiences led me, like everything in life pushed me in that direction towards community outreach and prison reform and those types of things.
Well, so how would you describe your journey from your early experiences to becoming an advocate for social change?
Um, I believe that my journey has been one. Again, like I said, it's been a lot of tough lessons learned. A lot of it's been. I ain't gonna say it hasn't been easy. It's been difficult, but I've had the desire, and the God given strength to persevere in the midst of the difficulties. And so like I would describe my my journey there as transformative, and one filled with extreme resilience.
Mhm. So, with the guys that you work with, do you ever, when you're having meetings or counseling sessions with these young men, do you ever just speak about your experience and how you try to make their experience different?
Yeah, so in the work that I do, I'm a very very transparent person, and so like I don't get up in front of people and trying to kind of like put on airs as if I arrived at a certain place. I try to meet people where they're at, and I find the easiest way for me to connect with guys who are incarcerated or struggle with addiction or whatever they may be struggling with is to share my own experiences. And so when I get up in front of people every day when I teach in the prison, I incorporate where I can and where I feel it's necessary, bits and pieces from my life. I share that.
So, as I think about, when you and I have, when we chatted
Hmm.
before, what I found to be so interesting is that, I think about, a young man like yourself when you were there at Howard
Hmm.
University. I don't know how, what the beginnings were, but you got to Howard
Hmm.
University. And so when you got to Howard University and thinking about the family dynamics and so forth as to your life in
Hmm.
general, was there anything that happened prior to you going to Howard that maybe changed your path while you were there?
No, like so I would say that like I grew up in like kind of like a neighborhood where of course like any typical urban neighborhood where there were like drugs and there addictions been running through my family and stuff like that. So when I started like drinking and smoking marijuana at 15. And I like to say that like when I started doing that, I felt like I had found some sort of magic potion that erased all insecurity, all fear, anything that I had experienced at that point that was negative. Alcohol and weed erased that for me. And so like when I was always smart in school. So schoolwork was never a problem with me, even in the midst of anything that I've ever done. And so when I went to Howard, I actually was, excited to be there, but like, I really like wanted to party. And being honest, I'm in DC.
Yeah.
I'm, in a bigger city than Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and I'm at this premier black school that like I dreamed about going as I wanted to go to Howard since I was like probably in middle school.
Mhm.
And Yeah, I don't know. I grew up in church, so there were all these different aspects of me. I mean, I have this aspect of like I grew up in church singing, so that was always there. But I had this other side of me that like I enjoyed street life. I liked being out and about. I liked partying. So at times I've liked chaos. And so I brought all of that to Howard, like kind of like with me. But when I would say that like my freshman year, when I had this like awakening at this bar, um, I realized that like especially being out of my neighborhood where where you grow up with these people all of your life, and everybody's like family there. When I got to Howard, that I would say that was the first time that I noticed, truly, really noticed. Um, my own insecurities. I truly was in touch with like my fears. I would say that like where I was from in my neighborhood, like I was kind of like I would say like kind of sort of fearless. And When I got to Howard, I feel like I shrank in many ways.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah.
So what challenges have you faced in your career as a public speaker, and how have you overcome them?
Um, Let me see. I wouldn't say like the I would say challenges for me would be more so in the people that I help. Sometimes I can get a little maybe like too connected or like involved with someone who maybe is in a different space of change and like trying to like understand like everybody's journey is different. Yeah, I don't know. I think that like that's sometimes challenging for me because I want everybody who I come in contact with who I'm like teaching to get it, to understand it, to buy into what I'm saying. And that's not always the case.
Mhm. So, in your opinion, what characteristics make an effective public speaker, especially in the realm of social justice?
For me, I was number one thing I would say is transparency, especially if you have the lived experience, not trying to go in front of people and put on airs. I think like finding your own voice, knowing your own like narrative is highly important. But like transparency is just like absolute key for me. So like sometimes like when I'm in front of people, I always get a little bit nervous because I don't never plan on what I'm going to say. Even in this podcast, I don't know what will come out. So there's a slight nervousness because again, I'm transparent and I try not to hold back. So I think that like a key thing for someone doing public speaking in a social justice realm, um, transparency and knowing your own voice, identity, and your own narrative.
Well, you're doing fine, and so I just as you go through this, I mean, it's only going to get that much better. So you're doing fine, though. I
I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. I appreciate it.
Let's transition over to the community outreach and social justice.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate on the reentry program you lead for prisoners and its primary objectives?
Okay, so the reentry program that I run, I actually created it at my job. So it is called Freedoms. It's called Facing Reentry Through Education and Empowerment for Men over what is it? Overcoming with for men. And I again, it's a 6 week curriculum that I created. The first week I deal kind of like with manhood. I talk about identity, and I talk about toxic masculinity, and I talk about redefining what it means to be a man. So I kind of like deal with that the first week. The second week, I deal with overcoming obstacles, values and goals, and establishing a mission statement and a vision, like kind of like for one's life. The
Mhm.
third week, I deal with community, be it relationships, understanding toxic and relationships, how to connect with community, how you show up in your community, how you want to show up in your community, and then the next 3 weeks I do with employment, college prep and trade school, and finance.
Mm. So, did you actually put that curriculum together, or was this something that the people at your job did? Because you said that I know you said that you started the program. Did you
Yeah,
put the curriculum together?
yeah. So I like when I first got hired at my job, I was like assisting someone in another program. But then my job got, I guess, like the opportunity. They wanted us to provide programming on another block. So my supervisor asked me to kind of like take the lead and to create, basically from what I wanted. She knew about like kind of like my experiences and stuff to just kind of like create the program. So like I created the name for the program and I created all the material that even I created like the handouts I even created was like my own stuff.
Oh wow! Now see
Mhm.
that in itself, that's being gifted right there. That's
Yeah.
being gifted because normally for a lot of people, when especially when it comes down to educational curriculums and so forth, some people that are tasked to do those kind of things, they kind of
Yeah.
struggle because I guess they have this tendency of overthinking. But
Yeah.
apparently you knew exactly what was at stake in order to put this together.
Yeah.
So while you was putting this together, I mean, were you just thinking about yourself and reentry, or what was your thought process as you was putting this together?
Yeah, it's well. One thing that what when I began to put this together, I still have my journal from prison from when I was in prison. I
Mhm.
took out my journal and I began to like read through it. and I began to like place myself back in jail, and begin to consider what was like very, very key. That like if someone would have told me this, um, um, maybe something would have shifted or changed from me. Again, because I had my own spiritual awakening when I went to state prison, and so I basically pulled from that experience, like the insight that I gained during that time, the wisdom that I had gained during that time, and I put it all into this program that I created.
So, what are some of the biggest barriers that formerly incarcerated individuals face when reintegrating into society?
I believe that I would say that like every I believe state may be different, but just in general, especially here in Boston, I know housing is a big thing. Getting people like stable housing, and employment. But I see where I come in is I try to encourage them, that like if you have an end goal, to kind of just like take whatever, kind of like just puts money in your pocket at the time, but to keep like grinding. But like housing and employment is difficult.
Mhm. So, how do you measure the success of your reentry program?
So I would measure my success. So my reentry program is fairly new. My goal for like the tool that I use to measure success now is how many people come and engage with my nonprofit, because we go into the prison from my nonprofit. So like success for me would be people who get out of jail who are in my program and then now come into the nonprofit to do programming at the nonprofit.
Mhm. So, what role does community support play in helping individuals reintegrate successfully?
I mean, it's just key. And community support comes in all different ways from all different people. So you can have community support from family, community support from resources and agencies, and community support from churches. I always stress and almost advertise and plug for people to do therapy, when especially men when getting out of prison. So I think that community support is like very important in reentry. And these are honestly things that I didn't have adequately, and perhaps that's why I may have bumped my head so many times.
Listen, that
So
shit.
yeah, so but I sometimes that's what gets me frustrated with some of the guys that I teach too, because I see there's so many programs, at least here in Boston, there's so many programs, and and even with me, with people who are assigned to my caseload, I'm trying to help and support people who don't want it.
Mm.
So
Now that's interesting. But I want to circle back to that, but I want to ask you about something that you said in the last statement that you made. Can you tell us why is it that you feel like counseling slash therapy, mental health treatment is so much better for these guys when they're re-entering into society?
I mean, one is that like, life in itself, beyond anybody who's been incarcerated, life in itself can be traumatic. We live, we die, we lose, we hurt, and we get used, especially black people, like what I mean, black men and women, get used to just going through life, and pulling herself up by their bootstraps and keeping it moving. But I think that like men don't talk about their emotions. They don't. I stress in my classes, like if I ask what it means to be human, it means to have emotions. I mean, yet men, especially a lot of black men, act as though they don't have emotions, or if they don't know how to express their emotions, or if they do express their emotions, the only emotion that they know how to express is anger.
Right.
So I just think that therapy is just key in just being whole and well, and being able to kind of like show up in a world, and do like kind of like figure out and do what you were created here to do.
Let me ask you something about you say about the expressions being angry.
Mhm.
Do you think that's a learned behavior, or do you think that's something that's taught
I
that
think it,
gets these guys that way?
I think it's both. I think it's
Okay.
both learned and taught. Like, you know what I mean? I think that like when you like again, I teach a class on toxic masculinity, which is a distorted, unhealthy view of what it means to be a man. And for me, um, I I growing up in my neighborhood, my earliest of ideas of what it meant to be a man were wrapped up in like promiscuity, aggression, fighting, um, you know, um, and not being able, not being able to walk away from something, or now what I teach is that being a man means to be self-aware, responsible, and exercise self-control, and that means over your temper too.
Hmm.
So
Oh wow. Um, I would love to study that curriculum that you use, because it sounds like it's a really powerful tool that if people are actually listening and being aware of what's actually being taught in that manual, that it could definitely do a lot of help to make the transition into society a little bit easier.
yeah, so yeah, I believe that it is helpful. It's been helpful. The reactions and the responses that I've gotten from the guys who take my class have been like, yeah, it's been very great. I've given like surveys out for people to write at the end of the class, like and I've gotten like so much good feedback that even encouraged, not only encouraged me, but this gave me confidence in the work that I was doing.
Oh wow.
So
So, can you share a success story from your program that particularly stands out to you?
well, the guy, I would say that he's still in prison, but he's about to get released.
Hmm.
But he came in my class last August, and and mind you, I teach 12 weeks. I mean, 6 weeks of one class, and then 6 weeks of another curriculum, and then we go back to the first curriculum. So I'll have new people, and I teach on one block. But because he is so he came in, I would say, like one way, but he's signed up for the class every time I've taught it. So he's been with me since August, and I'm currently reteaching something that I've already taught. Yet he still comes to my class, and like I have a lot of side conversation with him. So like I only fully know his success like once he leaves the jail, and how he shows up and what he decides to do. But like while he's been there, I just his mindset has I believe shifted, and changes in my conversations with him have changed since the initial conversations that I had with him. They're just different.
Let's transition over to your public speaking themes. Can
Hmm.
you tell us what themes do you find that resonate most with audiences during your talks?
So my big thing that I always talk about is freedom, and freedom being much more than a physical space. The freedom is has to do with one's mind and spirit, and so that even when someone is incarcerated, that they can become free. So even when your body is physically locked up in jail, if you become free mentally and spiritually, then you're free. And then and I always stress that in order for one to experience freedom, for me not go back to jail physically, then you have to do the internal work in the mind and the spirit to become free.
So, how do you tailor your messages to different audiences, such as the youth, community leaders, or policymakers?
So I really haven't done any too many youth things, but if I did do youth things, I would probably kind of like consider tailoring and talking about me as a kid, and my experiences in my own youth, and kind of like just sharing my story in a way that I would hope would resonate in helping people to see kind of like where I was, where I am and where I'm going.
Okay.
So
What role do storytelling and personal experiences play in your public speaking?
very, very key. Again, storytelling is something that I always do. I think that like someone, not even just mine, but anybody's, someone's lived experience in a particular area is just the most impactful thing that one can um, have. It makes the deepest impact. It causes someone to, and it creates connection.
So, how do you handle difficult questions or pushback during your speaking engagements?
I would be honest with you to say that I haven't really had yet, knock on wood, too much kind of like you know pushback or kind of like disdain. For the most part, what I've been doing has been like that's why I said I've been so encouraged and even given confidence because it's been so well received.
Mhm.
And people like where I say like people like buy whatever you're selling. I feel like that people have been buying into what I'm talking about when I'm sharing my lived experiences and my own journey.
So, in your view, what is the most pressing issue facing Black communities today, and how do you address it in your talks?
mm, I want to think about this question for a minute. Could you repeat that for me again?
In your view, what is the most pressing issue facing Black communities today, and how do you address it in your talks?
I would say a major issue, which isn't a new issue, is addiction. It looks a little differently now. In the 80s, 90s, it was, like crack. A
Mhm.
lot of people now, especially like younger people, they do pills. There's a lot of pill addiction. And there's also just a lot of overdoses because, people are buying press pills on the street that have fentanyl kind of like in them.
Mhm.
And I think addiction, which has been ravishing through Black communities, for decades now, I think it's still a pressing issue. Um, so yeah.
So let's move to reflections on change.
Mm.
Over the years, what changes have you observed in community responses to social justice initiatives?
I would say that um, again, me being in Boston, I've never seen, um, and I've talked to a couple other people who are from here and do programming here. Here they have a lot of programs for reentry, for homeless, for people struggling with addiction. There's just a lot of more programs than like again, I come from Pennsylvania, and my process was some years ago, but it there's a lot more available, at least here, than what was available to me about 10 years ago in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Um, well, before I ask this question, let me just follow up and ask you, alluding to that last answer. Um, in Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
while there and you growing up, especially in Pittsburgh, which is Western Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
um, what was that experience like for you as a young Black boy? Trying to make your way through to the successes in which you're trying to accomplish things by going to Howard. What was that like growing up in Pittsburgh?
It was all right. It was, I don't live there now, but I loved my community growing up. I come from like of course, like there's struggles and things that went on in my family, but I come from a big, loving family. Who come together during difficult times. And um, I wouldn't say that like my childhood was, crazy things happened. But yeah, I was loved. My mom had me young. My mom also struggled with addiction. My mom had me at like 17. And my dad wasn't, really present. But yeah, she did the best that she could with what she had. My grandmother did the best that she could with what she had. You learn these things as you get older. You like when you're a kid, you get resentment, like all of these other things. But as you get older, you realize that people do what they can. They do the best that they can, of what they have. But I was loved. I was, supported. Of course, like when you're internalizing things as a kid, and I'm navigating, trying to find my own way. Again, school always came easy to me. That was nothing. But um, I didn't talk about my feelings for a long time, and so like again, I found relief in drugs and alcohol.
Mhm.
And I didn't expect to be. I never expected to be addicted to anything. I just considered myself a partier before I even started drinking. I used to go to under 21 clubs when I didn't drink. So I always loved to party and dance and yeah, that. And so that was always just a part of me. But I also grew up in a big, large family. All my family went to church. I went to Sunday school. I sung in the choir. My uncle's a pastor who, like, my uncle took part in raising me too. My mom's oldest brother, and yeah, so that was always there. I preached my first sermon when I was like 18 in church, and so that part of me was always there. But I would say that I was when I went to Howard. I got in because I made good grades, but I was lost. You know what I mean? I didn't have a good sense of who I was or what I wanted to do. I didn't have that, and so that's why my journey went in the way that it did. But yeah,
But it sounds like to me that despite what the environment was, it's like you still had enough sense of self to know that you needed something different, when you
yeah,
wanted to go to Howard and when you got there. So, I mean, I think just in between that time, I guess it sounds like to me that, when you got that chance to go to Howard, it's like now you're out there on your own, and now it's really was the time to just say, "Ooh, what's going on?" Let me
yeah,
see.
yeah. So
But it sounds like the experience itself was something that kind of that should have helped you along the way, because it seems like you're like well put together now.
well, Howard definitely helped me because I even wherever whatever I did and wherever I went, I knew I always wanted more because of my experiences. Like you
Okay.
mean, I just was lost during that time trying to figure out and find my way. But like in the back of my mind, and deep down inside, I always felt that there was greatness there.
Hmm.
And even with going to Howard, I was surrounded by greatness.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I always knew, but it's knowing that it's there and um navigating or journeying to get to it is different. That's a whole nother thing.
Right.
And so some people arrive at this place of understanding like who they are, where they're going, and see like I'm getting to their greatness early. They I mean some of them come to school with that. And then there's my journey was different. But I respect it, and it is it kind of like it just is what it is.
So, how important is allyship in the work you do, and what does it look like to you?
So I think that allyship is very important. I think that like having people, even if those who didn't weren't in particularly like locked up or may not have the lived experiences, but can share and walk alongside people. Especially with people getting out of jail, like a lot of these guys like just want and need love for real, for real. They may not be saying that, or they may not even know that themselves. But
Hmm.
deep down inside, hello,
Okay. Are you back? Is it
yeah,
like you
yeah,
was you
it
frozen for
paused,
us?
yeah, it paused.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone looking to get involved in community outreach and social justice?
I, first thing I would say is just if someone has a heart for that, either I would say you could volunteer. Like I'm just starting to get involved in another organization, which is called Second Chance Justice here in Boston, that does some other work with prison reform. I think volunteering, I'm networking, connecting with other people who are involved in similar work, is just like kind of like at the ground level.
Okay. How do you envision the future of social justice efforts, particularly concerning reentry programs?
For the future, I think that like I don't know. I just feel like if everybody plays like their part, it can be very, very good. Like I think that people, its leaders, like understanding what they're like, kind of like called to. There are people I feel like who are called to change systems. Like you know what I mean. The criminal justice system in itself. For me, I feel like that my goal and my driver where I feel I'm what I'm feeling, at least at this time in my life, I'm feel like that I'm attached to change the individual within the system. So there's those who do the work of changing the system, and then there are those who do the work to change the individuals who are in the system. I think that if everybody understand, plan to play your part, your role, and understanding your role, and even collaborating and networking and connecting together to ensure that men and women re-entering into society after incarceration are given a fair chance. And I'm not even talking about even with like jobs and stuff like that, but I'm just talking about just having the necessities. Even something as simple as like housing or again mental health services.
So, what legacy do you hope to leave within your community and beyond?
Um, I hope that I can leave one of service and justice and compassion.
Mhm.
That like I'm a servant to others, one of justice, and that like I lead in everything that I do with compassion for and with others. Understanding people's hurts and meeting people where they are.
So, let me ask you this because, I can hear that passion that you have.
Mhm.
Um, so just when as we're doing this show right now and as we're speaking to our audience, what are some of the things that you want people that are in the actual situation that we speak of right now, what are some of the things that you think they can take away from the things that you're speaking about now, and how it was, as how your background went from then to now? What are some of the things you think that they should be able to take away from this that they should use?
Are you talking about people who are incarcerated or is
No,
struggling with reentry?
our audience.
I just think that like one just having compassion for people, just understanding that life is difficult. I feel like that like again being being able to be have the ability to be transparent with people and connecting with people and to yeah to I think that sometimes people can be I think all people and even me at times in different ways, but I think at times people can be judgmental, very
Yeah.
judgmental, and yeah, I just think that like we would do better if people were just more empathetic and compassionate and understanding and supportive in that type of way. And if a person who has a lived experience of doing this type of work, just being transparent, connecting with people in that way, and being honest.
So let's talk about your future endeavors.
Mhm.
Um, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives you're especially excited about?
So I'm actually in the process of putting together, trying to start my own nonprofit. And so
Okay.
I'm in the works for like trying to do that. And thank you, I appreciate it. I also I already I put together a book. Um, um, I'm deciding what I'm going to do with it right now. It's a little bit like it's me being very vulnerable. So it's actually my journal from prison. I put it together. So I put it all together. It's on the computer, I put it together as a book. So I'm debating about like what to do with that, or when to do something with it. And I also started another book that I'm writing.
Okay.
So
So I take it then that this first manuscript that you're talking about writing is going to be an autobiography.
So the one in jail is just a collection of like journal entries, poems, reflections. The one that I'm currently writing is a novel. Actually, it's fictional, but it's based on my own life.
Okay.
And so it's like kind of like written in allegory form. It's about a guy journeying to freedom. It's called a place called Free. I'm journeying there, and I'm just um, talking about telling the story of his journey, how he gets there.
So can you tell us, how do you balance your work as a public speaker with your community outreach efforts?
I think having like balance is key. I try not to I can't overextend myself. Like sometimes like I can get like overwhelmed with like getting off of work and then having to jump on like Zooms and stuff like that. And I also think that being able to delegate and you know, sometimes people don't like to say no, but like I think saying no sometimes too is key. Because you're no good to service if you're not good internally and rested for yourself. So
So what skills or experience do you think are essential for the next generation of social justice advocates?
I think that like being resilient, being again compassionate, and understanding people, being willing to walk alongside people like you're saying, like allies and that those types of things, and yeah, just whatever kind of like be passionate about that, just allowing your heart to lead you.
So can you tell us, how can individuals get involved in supporting prison reentry programs in their communities?
I think that there's a lot. Probably you can like probably like Google organizations who do reentry work, and then like trying to like again like then find one that may fit, because different organizations focus on different things. You might have a organization that just kind of like focus on like work readiness, employment, jobs. You might have an organization that focuses on reform and advocacy, and then you may have an organization that's focusing on like mental and emotional wellness. So I think just like doing your own research, and then finding which one may be a good fit for you.
So what role do you believe social media plays in raising awareness about social justice issues?
I think social media is just key in anything nowadays. It just everybody's on it. I just think there's like I'm on a podcast now, but everybody, there's a lot of podcasts. A lot of visibility on social media platforms. So I do think that like social media is just kind of like key in this day and age in raising awareness in any type of work that one is doing.
How has your understanding of social justice evolved throughout your career?
Mm. I would say that like like again like I feel like that I've been on a journey, and understanding what really like social justice is.
Mhm.
Even initially when I had the heart to do this, because of my own experiences, I didn't really consider it like social justice. I really just kind of like considered it, like kind of like some work that I wanted to do because I wanted to help. But I just think that it's evolved as I've been in different spaces, and then as I've continued to live, and fully understanding the work.
So do you see advocates like yourself, like going into the future with these new people that want to get into social justice? Or do you project or have an opinion that for the fight that's been put up with into that situation up to this far, do you see it getting a whole lot better? Do you see it staying the same? Do you see it changing as to how people are attacking social justice?
I think it'll get better. You know what I mean? I think that like, in life that like there's always a progression, a growth of something, and just with like platforms and people. Well, people have been tired, but like but people are tired, and I think that like new generation of people are just different. There's a lot of a younger generation who are more socially conscious, I would say, in some ways, in different ways, and I think in life anything, I see it progressing and getting better.
So, can you, in moments of doubt or frustration, what keeps you motivated to continue your work?
Man, I have God. I just would have to say that. Like I have, I feel like that. I was created, by God, on purpose and for purpose. And so, part of the work that keeps me motivated is that I feel like that I'm doing the work that like my soul must have.
Mhm.
And so like if I'm doing the work that my soul must have, this is what makes me smile. This is what makes me it gives me energy. You know what I mean? It doesn't take from me. It adds to me. Like I said, earlier, it's, how I'm going in with these men, and I'm leaving out, I'm encouraged. I'm leaving out almost, I'm pouring out, but I'm in ways I'm poured into. So
So, do you just with those things that like when they happen, that could be like a little obstacle of some sort. Do you kind of like have to take yourself to a place of to step back, to calm, and then handle situations, or how do you handle situations that are just that just pop up that are just way out of sorts?
I process things. So like man, I'm not. I'm definitely not reactionary. I definitely have. It's always cool to have like what I'll say like a multitude of counselors. So you run things by people. And so I definitely don't just if something happens or rubs me the wrong way or whatever. I definitely just I've learned not to be reactive, but rather to seek counsel from someone maybe with a little bit more wisdom than you.
Um, how do you practice self care amidst the often emotional, taxing work of social justice?
Um, I rest. I do I'm I'm an introvert. There are days that like I don't want. I don't. I talk to my mother every day. That's about the only person I talk to every day. I don't like really like talking on the phone. When I come home, kind of like from and I close my door, I kind of want to just like watch TV, relax. I do also do like other things for myself. I go to NA meetings, what I mean, where I'm able to share and like get things off my chest there. I do therapy. I journal, and I go to church. I do that. And I try to exercise. It's getting a little bit warm here. Boston has beaches. I like walking.
Mm. Who are some other figures in Black history that inspire you, and how do they influence your work?
Um, the one that's always well, not gonna say always inspired me, but the main my main guy is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I would just say that I of course I've knew about him like all my life, but while I was in prison, I read his autobiography, and it just impacted me in a whole different way. I feel like that as I was reading his autobiography, kind of like my eyes were like opened um, and it sparked something in me even while I was in jail. And so I was intrigued and fascinated by his life of just like service and justice and sacrifice. You know what I mean? And just I was even just amazed of like just what he accomplished in such a short span of life, and even how early he was doing everything. And just even some of his quotes, like one of my favorite quotes by him is it says the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. So
And speaking of Dr. King, you're going to transfer. We're going to, go over to this segment of where we do Black History 365,
mhm.
and with the influence of Dr. King, how has Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence influenced your work?
um, I would say that like I like how Dr. King like led in love, and his a lot of like what I read in his autobiography was him like trying to figure out how to fight against what was going on during the Jim Crow era while still maintaining his integrity as a Christian. And so he always wanted to lead kind of like with love, and part of that love was like not fighting physically. And I would say, and back in my heyday, I was a fighter, and I was reactionary to things, and yeah, I my heart is has softened so much that like everything that I do, I pray and try to lead in love, with others and for others.
So, in what ways do you see Dr. King's legacy reflected in contemporary social justice movements?
Well, service, and and a lot of these protests that they do, they're nonviolent. I mean, the violence actually comes from the police.
Hmm.
So, just as well as when civil rights era was going on, the same thing, different era, but just the service and just the justice and just the resilience of fighting in the face of the absurd. So.
So can you tell us, can you share a specific lesson or quote from Dr. King that has guided you in your career?
Yeah, the one I just quoted kind of like has been the one that I just kind of like hold on to, the ultimate, because I'm always like playing around and thinking about what it means to be a man, truly what it means to be a man, and just and I'll repeat it again, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. So that's something that like I keep at the forefront of my mind, and I utilize that in all areas of my life. I use that with relationships. The ultimate measure of a friend is not
Mhm.
where they stand in comfort and convenience, but where they stand in challenge and controversy.
So, how do you incorporate the principles of equity and justice advocated by Dr. King into your public speaking engagements?
I just believe that like it's kind of like automatically incorporated by way of my own experiences. The reason why I'm an advocate or passionate about justice and equity is because I feel like I've been at times, especially being involved in the criminal justice system, treated unfair. I know what it feels like to have, and again, like I said, I didn't start getting in trouble until after I had a degree. So imagine, people who haven't graduated, high school, the obstacles you have to overcome, and so I just know what it feels like to to have doors in front of your face. I know what it feels like to go to court and get sentenced 10 times harder than perhaps your white counterpart. So
How has Dr. King's emphasis on community upliftment shaped your approach to outreach?
um yeah, I just think that like we can't do nothing without community. I feel like that we're a part of community, and I feel like that like I'm doing this type of work, you have a responsibility, kind of like to whom much is given, much is required. I feel like that, a lot of people who get involved in this work, there's one who is, passionate, about it, but then there are those who are called to this. And for me, I feel this, this is much more than, a passion project for me. This is, I feel called to this.
Mhm. Well, I'm glad that we're not done, but I'm just glad that we got the opportunity, for people to see you and hear your story and where you have gotten to today, because I think it's that passion, that compassion, that empathy and that sympathy, for others that you're providing. That probably a lot of folks did not provide to you, but you're doing that.
Yeah.
And I just think that when we can all do something to reach back and grab others and pull them forward, it makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. It does.
So let's talk about Black history perspectives. Why do you think it's important to discuss Black history in the context of social justice today?
I believe that like any social justice history is rooted, especially in this country, is rooted in Black history. So I feel like the understanding, having a good sense and understanding of Black history is key in understanding, social justice, any type of justice.
How do you feel the historical narrative around incarceration in the U.S. impacts current perceptions of the criminal justice system?
Repeat that again.
How do you feel the historical narrative around incarceration in the U.S. impacts current perceptions of the criminal justice system?
Well, the historical framework for incarceration, be it false, is you know mainly that our black people are criminals. Like I'm currently like living in Boston, and of course, black people are minorities here, but when you go to a prison, they're the majority
Mm,
of the time. And
mm.
so I just think that like that, the narrative surrounding, the criminal justice system and, black people is just bad.
Well, see when I think about this question, and I love the way you answer that question, but we could be a little bit deeper and in depth with that.
Mhm.
Is kind of like how I see it, because, and you just tell me what you think. I think that it's clear that the justice system has an inequality when it comes to black people, especially black men. And so for us, it's clearly two justice systems,
Mhm.
because we're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
The other folk are innocent until proven guilty, but they
Right.
say the justice system says you're innocent until proven guilty. But we
Right.
know that that's flawed and that's a lie. But
Hmm.
then they also say Lady Justice is blind. When of course that's not true either, because you know good and well she can look under that veil and say that's a black man, he's guilty.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I
I, I
mean,
I
go ahead.
wholeheartedly agree. I'm still dealing with, the ramifications of, my thing. I got arrested in 2015. I went to jail in 2000. I mean, went to trial in 2016. I went to state prison, got out the end of 2017, and I was given a tale of like 10 years probation.
Wow.
And I'm never given a program, never given an opportunity for anything like that. I'm not saying that like, you do a crime to not, there's consequences for the things that you do. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that, but what I'm saying is that like, I firmly believe for sure that like, I know, white people from being in programs and being in prison and all of that who have done way worse, and just hasn't been given. Like I have excess probation, So luckily, I didn't get in trouble again, because this just would have been a whole cycle of going back and in and out of jail if I would have like fallen.
Mm.
But yeah, it just was excess for a person who clearly was just struggling with addiction, doing things out of that, never given a program. And like I said, I'm not saying not to, that I didn't deserve any time or whatever, but to put me on paper for 10 years
Yeah.
was just excess.
But you know something? I'm going to say this to you as well. That city that you're in, I know it oh so well.
Yeah,
A couple of times was enough for me.
yeah.
I never had to go across anything, but I actually saw people that look like you and I that went through some things, and I'm like, that is just flat out crazy.
Well, you can't do that while I'm here. Why would you do that? You just threw me. I thought it Nobody could hear me. I can hear you. I'm over there making faces like puffing and puffing while I'm on a podcast. Why would you do that? You're awkward. Darn.
Oh man.
Tell your kid.
Ramon, is everything okay? Well, um, well, um, I hope that everything is okay. That was a we had a pretty good show here, and I think Mr. Durham has done an enormous amount of things that we should all be proud of, and I'm very happy that he has made some changes and things are going better for him now. Uh, for those of you that have watched the show, just I would ask if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, and get a chance to watch more shows, including this show and other shows. Um, we will see you guys next week, and again, we'll have another great show, America in Black and White. So you all have a great weekend, a great evening, and we will